Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is the first Teacher Studio Presents NQT Support Sunday workshop. On behalf of everyone here of the Teachers Studio, we wish you all the best in your next couple of weeks at NQT or an ITT. We know some of you are feeling quite nervous or worried. You have nothing to be worried or nervous over. You'll be absolutely fine. And if you do feel as if you need extra support, please feel free to reach out to any one of us today, whether it's me personally on Twitter at Mr. P. Purdie, or whether it's one of the guest speakers. Please just reach out and we're there to support and collaborate here. Just to give you a bit of a background, the Teacher Studio was kind of founded really about 2 to 3 weeks ago. I noticed that there was loads of posts coming on my thread about kind of feeling worried or nervous or what they should be doing in the summer holidays before their NQT or ITT year. And then I kind of spoke to Tanya and Andy and Carl and then Phil, and then we kind of joined together and developed this, what we hope is going to be an amazing CBD event for you all, but also just a really, really good way of kind of getting that continuous support from more experienced teachers, teachers that maybe are working near you, and just to offer that kind of guidance if you need any. We are all passionate about collaboration. We are all passionate about supporting each other and giving you our advice and our opinions to help you and allow you to progress and allow you to have the confidence to see what amazing people and teachers you all are. Before we get on to anything, I just want to say a big thank you to all the people that have donated some gifts for us today. So there are in total, there are 11 different gifts that you are able to win. So I just want to say a big thank you to Will Thomas. Will Thomas is a really, really, really excellent coach and mentor, and has got some books written as well, and he's also on Twitter at Will Thomas Coaching. We have got an ebook prize to give away from Well Company, which is a wellbeing and leadership company. We have been donated books from Crown Publishing. We've been donated books from Andrew Carley. We've been donated books by Women Ed. Again, Women Ed is an amazing organisation. So please, again, get involved in that. Again, they're on Twitter too. We've been given a prize from Class Charts. And for everyone here today, you've all been given one prize already. And that is from the amazing company, Positive Teacher Planner Company. If you haven't, or if you don't know what Positive Teacher Planner Company are, they are a company that develops and makes a range of personalized teacher planners, assessment charts, posters, stickers. They are huge on Twitter. And for everyone here attending, you have your own discount code. And that code is Studio Teacher 10. I will put it in the group chat. So if you've already bought your planner and you're thinking, oh, damn it, I haven't been able to use it, don't worry. You'll be able, if you want to have another look on the website and see what else they sell, and you can use that code for it. And this is only for us here today. So that is a freebie for everyone here. So please use it. And enjoy whatever amazing products you get. I know Sal and Rachel work extremely hard in that company, and there's an amazing reviews from all people that have bought their planners from them already. Before we go on to the other people about how you win these freebies today, so what we want you to do if you want to win them is you need to tweet at studio_teachers with maybe a top tip or something that you found really useful in all of the talks, because at the end of every talk we'll be giving one of the prizes away. Okay, you can also, though, again, add the hashtag NQT Support Sunday as well, and get a bit of us trending around Twitter, which will be great. So that's how you are in for a chance to win these prizes. And I will be going on Twitter throughout the chat as we are listening to these amazing presenters today, and we'll be choosing the best one just at random, and then you guys will you will win the prize up for grabs, and I will contact you personally on Twitter, and I'll either get it sent over by email or I will give you details of the company, and then you will get your prize in the post. If you have any questions today about any of the talks that we are going to cover, please send them to me directly in the chat function, just so they were not kind of bombarding everyone else's screens up with all the questions. I will collate them, and I will ask the guest speaker if they want to answer them, or we can answer them as a kind of a group and give more than one opinion. But again, if you do that through the chat function, that'll be great. And again, finally from me, all the resources will be uploaded to our Google Drive account, which has already been set up by Andy. So thank you for that, Andy. And the video, again, that's being recorded right now will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel later on, again, also by Andy. It will also be backed up with a document that is made from Phil. And basically, it is going to give you a range of different resources on internet, books, literature, etc., which will help you be able to specialize in a certain interest that you might have within your career or within your NQT year. And it looks a great document. So again, that'll be uploaded to our Google Drive. After the event, all of the links will be uploaded to our Twitter account. If you're not following us on Twitter, please do that as well. And then you'll be made aware of everything that we are doing in the future and all of our webinars, etc. Okay, so again, like I said, it's lovely to see you all here and I hope you enjoy it. So enough of me talking, because this Scouse accent can get a bit irritating, and let's get on with the actual show. So we have got running order today, and the first person I'm going to hand you over is to the fabulous Anna Castillo. Anna Castillo is going to be talking to you all about managing workload, which is something that is massively important for everyone, regardless of the stage of the career you are in. So Anna, if you can unmute yourself, and I will then make you host, and I will let you go on with it.
So, I'm going to be talking about managing your workload. I like to introduce myself. I'm Anna. I'm a curriculum leader for Spanish. I have taught over 20 years now. Can't believe that I'm saying that. And my passion as well is CPD. So I'm going to be talking about managing your workload. Nothing revolutionary or impressive here. It's just kind of a list of ideas that you might want to, practical ideas that you might want to implement in your day-to-day work. So I've kind of classified them into 5 groups: planning, list, marking, admin, and self-care. Okay, planning. Let's start with planning then. So in terms of planning, my first thing is resources. A lot of people, I see every single year, ITT students, trainees, I spend hours and hours on resources. I like to say, please don't reinvent the wheel. Don't spend hours on busy PowerPoints. Use all the departmental resources that you have at hand and adapt them. Lessons don't need mountains and mountains of resources. You need to think that some of the best lessons that I've actually seen involved minimal resources. You are the best resource in the classroom, so you need to know your subject well and inspire your students. If you have to when you have to plan any lessons or any resources, do maybe have a lesson template, because that kind of saves a bit of time. And also thinking about COVID and the current situation, you might want to think about reusing the resources that you're creating for distance learning in case you have to. Also, in terms of resources, always make sure that you show the students what you expect their work producers will look like. Then you plan your resources from there. But don't spend hours and hours on resources. I think that's kind of what most of the time goes. Visualizer is this wonderful machine that everybody should be allowed to have one in the classrooms. It saves on photocopying. I always use it instead of, when I haven't got time to photocopy things. It's good to use a separate exercise book where you can, for each class, where you can model the work, and then you can use for any absent students to catch up on any missed work. Also, it's a reminder of what you have covered. And also, at the end of the year, you have this beautiful book full of model answers that you can reuse. Be organized. I think that's kind of the key thing for me. Make sure that you have a folder for each class or a folder for each year group. Make notes after teaching a lesson, so you remember. You more than likely you will be teaching maybe the same topic to different classes, especially if you're in secondary. And sometimes you forget which bit, where you got up to with that class. So always make a note right at the end of the lesson. Before leaving for the next day, always have all the stuff ready, so you're not panicking in the evening or worrying about it. If it's a Friday, make sure that all your photocopying is done for the Monday, and always leave your lesson having tidied your desk before. That'd be my, number one priority. Evidence folder. Always, I think it helps to have an evidence folder ready, because it's easy to kind of put your NQT evidence as you go along. You can always slip any piece of paper, any little bits as you go along. Also, it's good to have an evidence folder in your inbox, so any documentation, anything, you kind of start collating there, and it's just easier than leaving it till the last minute when you have to put everything together. watch teachers that work efficiently around you in your department, your school. You will see a lot of teachers that work really well. Watch them and see what they do that you maybe can implement in your own practice. Evening planning. If you or when you have to do any planning in the evening, always set yourself a time. Don't work to 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock and don't go beyond that. Really, if you're tired, it will impact in the delivery of the lessons and you will burn out over time. So make sure that you don't overdo it and you always go to bed early. Plan your PPA whenever you have time or your free time. Plan what you're going to do so you don't have actually spend all the lesson having a coffee and chatting to people, which is also useful at times, I must say. And network with others. Twitter is a great thing. You will find lots of support there, lots of ideas, but don't feel that you have to take upon every single idea. Maybe choose one thing that you might like to implement and one thing that will make a difference to the students that you teach. Also, engage with CPD on Twitter, make notes, and use your notes for your evidence for a NQT folder. Lists. Okay. I had to include lists because I am the worst. I always kind of have lots of lists going on. Human beings are completionists. They will have a nagging feeling to complete all these unfinished tasks, and lists are never completed. In teaching, you never finish all your to-do list. Always have write down 5 things that you want to accomplish on that day and prioritize them. If you're not sure, ask a colleague to help you prioritize the things that you have to do. I also combine that with the done list. Sometimes I write lists and I feel that I don't actually do all the things in my list. So at the end of the day, I write down what I actually have done. So I feel a bit more that I have achieved more. Doing the list in small cards or post-its, so you're not actually writing massive long things to do that never get accomplished. And I don't know if you've heard about the Eisenhower matrix. I used to have this in my classroom in a mini whiteboard, and I quite like this. You've got your urgent and unimportant, urgent, non-important, not urgent, unimportant, and then the things that you have to kind of throw away. They're not urgent and not important. So you organize the things that you have to do. And that worked quite well with me, as well as working in departmental meetings. We used to kind of come up with that. Marking. Obviously, the marking as we stand, we don't really know how this is going to work out. Some people will be collecting books. We are not going to, I'm personally not going to be collecting books. But marking is a very time-consuming thing. I don't think anybody says I love marking. I still, after 20 years, I feel it's a big chore, and I think it's because you don't feel that the students get the full benefit of your hours spent on it. So I quite like doing live marking or whole class feedback. Will save you a lot of time when it comes to give feedback to the students that is meaningful and useful. Plan your extended writing. Sometimes, especially at the beginning of my career, I used to give homework that it was all extended writing. I used to plan, I used to have with all the year groups at once. So make sure that you kind of stagger it so you don't have, lots and lots of extended writing to mark at one point. Make sure that the students can self-assess well they can. Obviously, extended writing you can't, but there'll be a lot of little activities, exercises that you can mark together in the class, and they can just, I always say, different color pen, and let's just check our answers. And if you have to mark a set of books, I always have the rule of the 10-10-10. 10 you mark in school, 10 you take home, and 10 you do in the morning, just to break it down and you don't see a massive pile of exercise books. And always get the students to get the book open on the right page. But as I say, with COVID and no touching things, so I don't know how this is going to be. Obviously, different schools will be doing these things in different ways. Admin. Photocopying. Nobody actually teaches you how to use the photocopy machine ever. You go there, you start pressing buttons. I've only recently discovered everything that I can do with the photocopy machine. Don't learn how to use your photo efficiently, so you can do your back-to-back, your side-to-sides, A5s, and all of that, because it does come in really handy. You don't want to be the person rushing on a Monday morning to photocopy, break the photocopy machine, and be hated for the whole year. So don't leave things for the last minute. Golden hour. For me, my golden hour is the time that you're most productive, and for me, it's 7 till 8 in the morning. So I always got to get to work early, and that's when I enter my emails. I get organized for the day. I understand that 7 till 8. Some people with children that have to drop them off. It might not be possible for you, but it might be that your golden hour is 3 till 4. You have to find that time that you're the most productive with your work. Meet deadlines, really important, because if you don't meet the deadlines, you'll get stressed and worried about things. Don't leave things for the last minute. You might have to ask someone how to do it, and if you leave it to the last minute, you might not have time. Learn to say no. NQTs are always asked to run clubs, to do extra things, or you need to think about your workload. So it's okay to say no, or maybe to say yes to one thing that you're interested in, and also you can incorporate it into your NQT evidence folder. Share your workload with your team, because your team are there to help you. You can share resources, you can ask people to do other things, or to share how to planning. So they're there to help you, really. On the first few days, you'll get information overload. You'll get so much information in your school about systems, about how to do things, about classes, planning. Get a notebook and write everything down and just carry in with you. Nobody is expected to remember all the answers at once. So always refer to your notebook or the notes that you make, because at the beginning, it's a bit overwhelming for me at the beginning. Buy paper cutter. I love this. Your guillotines or paper cutters, they're really cheap. They're like less than £10 on Amazon, and it saves you a lot of time of using scissors. So sticking sheets on books and so on. I really like that. And speak to people for support. Your NQT mentor, your head of department, any colleagues, head of year, other NQTs. Really important that you have a good group of support around you. Self-care. Right, the first thing is plan your outfits and your lunch for the week. I'm not going to name names, but I know one person plans them all, and it's not me. I should do this more often. Get your gym stuff ready, and so there's less chance of you to talk yourself out of it if you're going to the gym, for example. But that will save you time. You don't want to think, what am I going to have for lunch tomorrow? And you need to make sure that you eat and not skip your lunches. Find an NQT friend. It's obviously, maybe it's common sense. There'll be somebody in your school that you can complain to, you can share what's gone wrong, what's gone right, and it'll be the same experiences for them. I wouldn't suggest to have your email on your phone. Don't have your email on your phone so you can actually switch off, and you don't have to think about work or worried about that, something that just arrived on an email. So leave it on the phone. Leave it off the phone, and just maybe find some time to log onto your emails to check them. And to take time for yourself. For example, I personally don't work on a Friday night, and I don't work on a Saturday, just to have a day off. On a Sunday, I will plan my lessons for the following week. Whenever that is, find some time that works with you, but always is good to kind of make sure that at least you have a day off, off work. Set one day to leave off for, spend at least one evening per week doing something for you, a hobby, something that you're going to the cinema, something that you enjoy doing. So try to leave earlier for at least one day in a week. Lunchtime, don't work through lunchtime. Give yourself at least 30 minutes break every day. And also try not to have your lunch in front of your computer or your laptop. To go to the staff room, meet with somebody else, so at least you have a bit of a break at lunch. Use colleagues next door. This is kind of quite useful for me whenever you need to run into the toilet and somebody has to look after your class for a minute, or you need to make any urgent phone call. Use the people around you will help you out. Have a just-in-case box. With things like Lemsip, tissues, tights, paracetamol, deodorant in your cupboard. That's quite useful. And don't compare yourself to others, because your experiences will be different to anybody else. So my 5 top tips are, first one, if you think, shall I do this, or am I spending too long on this? My question that you should be asking yourself is this going to help the student? If not, then leave it. Yeah, they won't be that important. Ask for help. Ask anybody for help, because asking for help is a sign of strength and not weakness. It's not a race. You don't want to get burnt out. You need to make changes that can be sustainable along the way, because the best habits are the ones that we're invested in and that we have a regular time to incorporate into the everyday. The marigold effect, my lovely friend and colleague Sophie, she always talks about this. I don't know if you heard about it, but many experienced gardeners follow a concept that placing certain vegetables and plants near each other improves growth for one or both plants. So if you plant a marigold beside most garden vegetables, the vegetable will grow big and strong and healthy. So marigolds exist in schools too. Okay, you also have people that encourage, that support you, and they nurture you. And you might not be planted next to a marigold. You might have to find your own and seek them out. You need to find your marigold in school and be a marigold yourself for others. And enjoy it, because it's the best job in the world. And I can tell you that after taking all this time, there's nothing else that I would choose to do instead. So best of luck to everybody, and I hope some of these little tips have been useful for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Do you want to just make me the host again, please?
I will. I don't know how to, sorry.
So if you go to participants and then find me, and then...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've got you.
Great. Fab.
Thank you.
Perfect. Do you want to just unshare your screen as well?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Anna. I know it will be really, really useful for a lot of people. And yes, I am the one that plans my outfits in at least a week in advance. I have them all laid up and hung up and everything. But that's just me. I do love clothes. So yeah, thanks for sharing my kind of guilty pleasure. Okay, let's move on. First, before let's go on to our prizes. So again, loads of excellent tweets out there, so keep them coming, guys. Thank you so much. A lot of you, I can see, are kind of writing loads of notes down. Please, again, you can do that if you want to, but if you don't, then please remember that they will be all uploaded to our Google Drive account, and also the video will be uploaded to our YouTube later on as well. The winner of the first freebie, which is the Woman Ed book 10% Braver, goes to @Miss2Sullivan. So well done for the amazing tweet that you shared for your top tip. I will contact you directly on Twitter, and I will get your details sent over to Vivian, who is leading on the Woman Ed book donation, and then she will get that sent out to you in the post. So well done, and I hope you enjoy it. It is an amazing read, and yeah, you will love it. You will absolutely love it. So enjoy that book. Other than that, let's move straight on. We were meant to have Carl, who's also a co-founder of the Teacher Studio, but he couldn't make it for because he had other priorities. So we are, again, Phil will be uploading his account to our YouTube channel. So again, please take a look out for that. His focus was what is an NQT's priorities. So look at your priorities for this year, and again, watch his video, read his notes, and see what advice he would want to give you in that topic. We're going to move on to Phil next, and Phil is going to be discussing EdTech within schools. So again, Craig, Phil, I'm just going to make you the host, and then we will make a start.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex.
No worries. Perfect.
Brilliant. There we go. Ironically, whenever I talk about EdTech, that is normally when my technology decides it's not going to work. So we're gonna keep our fingers crossed. Good morning, everyone. I'm Phil, and I am just entering my second year of teaching at a primary school in Smethwick in the West Midlands, which is very close to Birmingham. I always have to tell people that. I work in a technology primary, so I'm really lucky to work with technology within the curriculum quite a lot of the time. And I'm very, very passionate about making sure that teachers, particularly new teachers, are equipped to be as successful as they can be, because this is the best job in the world, and it should be a privilege to be a teacher. And often other things get in the way of that sometimes. So this kind of supportive event and all of this advice from experienced teachers, hopefully, will set you up to be really successful as you go into either your NQT year or continue with your teacher training. So I'm going to talk a little bit about EdTech and how we can enhance learning through technology. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to pick out lots and lots of different platforms or software or hardware that you should be using, because ultimately that will be contextually different depending on where you are. And there are so many different tools out there that we could go through. What I will do is I'll signpost you some places where you can find out more about a few of them. But what I'm going to talk about more today is what we mean when we talk about EdTech, and how really it can be best applied within the classroom in order to make the biggest impact on your kids, and make sure that they make the most progress. So what we mean by EdTech is any kind of technology that we use in school that supports teaching and the effective day-to-day management of your school. And that can range from literally anything, hardware, digital software, resources, services that are paid into that run online or through technology. What I'm going to focus on really is on anything that's teaching and learning related. So the kind of technology you can use in the classroom, how to make sure that when you use digital technology in the classroom, it's most effective. As I said, that can be used for anything really. So we now use technology for behaviour management. We use it for lesson delivery. We use it for home learning. And it's anything that's mundane, like Microsoft Office that we're using every day, right through to more innovative and exciting, I suppose, pieces of kit like stuff we might use for robotics or programming. So the most recent teacher tap research kind of shows that actually there's a little bit of a change in the way that teachers view EdTech at the moment, particularly since lockdown, and the fact that we've kind of had it thrust to the forefront with our home learning and making sure that we are providing educational opportunities remotely. And I think actually teachers are now embracing it because it's the only way. And so more than ever, teachers are putting technology at the forefront of what they consider to be teaching and learning. And we've all had to get to grips with things like Zoom, Teams, Seesaw, ClassDojo, Google Classroom over the last few months. And I think actually this means that we're thinking about technology more than ever, whether it's good value for money and whether it adds to children's kind of teaching and learning opportunities. So what we need to get away from is this feeling that there are a camp of tech fanatic or evangelist teachers, and then there are the teachers that are longing for the return of, blackboards and chalk, because really what we should be focused on is the idea that tech, when it's used meaningfully, improves outcomes and processes, and it can support the application of skills. But it isn't a silver bullet. It isn't the be all and end all. It should be used when it is the most appropriate tool. And this quote really sums it up, I think. We should now see technology as being sort of a thread that's woven through everything we do in teaching and learning. And kids are using technology every day. So let's embrace the fact that they are digital natives and concentrate on how we can exploit that in order to add to the impact of the teaching that we're doing. And I think the way I always summarize that is that sometimes tech will be the right tool. It will add to the realism. It will allow them to access more information that they wouldn't be able to access from one textbook we might be able to access in school. And sometimes it won't be the best tool. Sometimes a pen and paper is the right tool for the job. And it's about us getting that balance, and being able to use technology discerningly, recognize when tech is the best tool for the job and when it isn't. So technology should help you work smarter, not harder. I'm sure Anna would agree with that from her presentation. We should absolutely be using technology when it isn't going to take more time, be more effort, and create more problems than it solves. We should be using technology to create a more engaging and inclusive classroom environment. And that can be done through a variety of technology. The one that immediately springs to mind is making sure that the technology that's in your classroom is able to be accessed and used by the children. A smartboard that's used basically as a whiteboard is not adding to those children's learning experiences any more than a TV screen would. Making sure we're enhancing learning experiences, making them more realistic, allowing for the application of skills that are being learned, and supporting effective teaching, which should include assessment and feedback. And there's some brilliant tools out there at the moment, from Socrative audits to quiz and assessment for learning software that can really make assessment that much easier and more accessible for you and do part of the work for you. And that all sounds brilliant, doesn't it? But technology can either amplify great teaching, but great technology can't replace poor teaching. So really what I'm saying is that technology isn't or shouldn't be the focus. Pedagogy should be the focus. And that's where this idea that it's a woven thread through everything we're doing in teaching and learning comes in. Technology definitely is never a toy, an add-on, bells and whistles. It's not a replacement for effective teaching or instruction, and it isn't just getting the iPads out so they can have a play. What we really ought to focus on in all of this is what is the purpose, the objective of the learning in that lesson, and how can technology provide a vehicle in order to access that most effectively. I think the way for us to consider implementing technology within our classrooms is to make sure that we're doing it in a research-informed way. So there was last year a report from the EEF called Using Digital Using Digital Technology to Improve Learning. And these are the 4 pillars. I would advise you to go and read the poster and have a look at the report. It's literally, the summary is a couple of pages long, and it really highlights how we can best implement technology to make sure that it's improving teaching and learning, improving the quality of our explanations and modelling, making sure that pupils have meaningful ways to practice, and playing that all-important role in assessment and feedback. So yeah, go away and have a look at that, and I'll leave the link in the handout that we'll email out to you as well. Oh, there we go. So as I said before, the focus should really be on improving quality of teaching and learning. So find an area that could be improved or enhanced using digital technology. So what is it exactly that you think that needs improving? Because sometimes we can find a solution that hasn't got a problem to solve. And what we need to do instead is think about, okay, where can technology create that enhancement? And the introduction of EdTech should be linked to effective pedagogy. So think about, are we focusing on modelling or practice or assessment with this particular tool, and how is it going to make that more effective? Plan and prepare for the new solution. So do your homework, research it, go and look at examples of how it's been used effectively elsewhere, check that you've got the right tool for the job, and do all that planning and preparation before rolling it out. And that includes bringing other people in. So I come from a primary background, and you might be really confident in using technology, but you need to make sure that those other people around you who are going to be working with those pupils are equally confident in using the technology if it's going to form part of what you're doing. So whether that be classroom assistants or partner teachers, making sure that everybody is involved in that process and that preparation. And then over time, making sure that actually the impact that you thought that technology was going to have, it is having. So reviewing whether it is having an impact on your children's learning, making sure that they're accessing it appropriately, and that the quality hasn't suffered as a result of the technology, but in fact it is improving and becoming more effective. So there's my top tips for using EdTech in the classroom. Do your research, prepare and practice, making sure you're including the other staff. Focus on your teaching and learning priorities, and review over time, and seek help and advice when necessary, whether that's from people that are out there, whether it's from on Twitter or other websites, whether it's somebody in your setting who's already doing something brilliantly with technology. Seek out that expertise, because people are normally really willing to share and want to help you to do the best for your children as well. And I suppose I'll leave you with the idea that we can be innovative using technology in the classroom to improve teaching and learning, but it doesn't always necessarily mean massive, big, exciting changes like robots teaching the lessons and that kind of big, flashy bells and whistles. What it can be is a small change that makes a big difference. So you might implement something that helps your children to really understand their feedback through video feedback or audio feedback or whatever that might be, and it allows them to access it in a way that is more effective, more individualized for them, and improves their kind of outcomes eventually. So really try and focus on that pedagogy, really try and make sure that you're focusing on teaching and learning, and technology can be your partner in learning rather than something big and scary that should be feared. And I'll put all of these links and reports on the handout, but just to emphasize that there are lots of other things out there that can give you top tips. There is some research out there that talks about most meaningful applications of technology in the classroom, and as always, whether it's for technology or whether it's just general kind of NQT or ITT tips, please do reach out on Twitter. I'll always return a DM and try and help as much as I can. All right, thanks very much, and I'll hand you back to Alex.
Thanks, Phil. That was great. Okay, moving on. The winner of the next freebie, which is a packet of cards about coaching yourself to a greater well-being, and also a managing workload pocketbook. And these are both from Will Thomas, I mentioned before. Early on in the session, an amazing coach and mentor, also on Twitter. And the winner of those two prizes is Miss Bilson. So I will contact Miss Bilson on Twitter, and then I'll arrange it to get posted to you. So well done. Right, we'll move over now to Craig, and Craig is going to be talking to us about behaviour management. Craig, again, quite active on Twitter, has become an amazing Disney kind of legend with me. Big fan of Disney. That's what our conversations are mostly about, but quite proud of that. So yeah, I'll leave it over to hand over to Craig, and he will talk about behaviour management. Thanks, Craig.
I might just have to hand him over to
yeah, do you want to just hand him over, please?
He's it's not liking you at the moment, I'm afraid, Alex. Let me pass you straight on to Craig.
Lovely. Right, let me just share my screen. And I am going to be talking about behaviour management today. So I'm going to be talking from kind of a primary perspective, but this can be sort of scaled up or also scaled down if you're working in nursery, anything like that. So for those of you that don't know me, as Mr. P said, I am also known as the Disney guy on Twitter at the minute, because we've had lots of nice discussions regarding Disney. I've been teaching for a little while now, been deputy head teacher, early years lead, Key Stage 1 lead, so I've got a bit of a variety of experience. And unfortunately for me, during my first ever job, I was immediately sort of designated as the behaviour guy. It was, oh, you must be really good with behaviour. So to talk to you a little bit about that is pretty cool for me. So during my NQT year, I started quite late. It took me quite a lot of applications to get my first position, 22 in fact. Quite rough when you're an NQT, as I'm sure lots of you will know, or some of you might still be looking for your first position. If you are, keep at it. Honestly, it's one of those things where once you've got your foot in the door, it's a doddle really. After that, you're okay. But that initial getting that first position is really tough. So my first position was not in a school near me. I had to move to sunny Skeg Vegas, aka Paradise. I'm originally from Lincoln, so it was about an hour journey, and I decided I was going to relocate. So straight away I was already kind of on a bit of a losing start, and when I started, I was actually starting in December, so I didn't start in September. And as soon as I walked into the classroom, I was told, because my interview was not with the class that I was teaching, I was told, oh, by the way, this class is full of behaviour children. I thought, okay, well, you know, 1 or 2 children with some challenging behaviour, no worries. Well, 12 of my children out of 28 were put on behaviour plans, and there could have been a few more, let's say. So my NQT, I kind of struggled a lot with learning different techniques. So my aim for this sort of chat for the next 10 minutes is to give you some tips and tricks and some actual things you can use in the classroom. So positive reinforcement and praise, I'm sure you've heard about it. I'm sure you've heard people banging the drum about it for ages. But the more positive you are, the more positive the children are. If you're negative or you're stressed, it'll rub off on the children massively. So you need to be emphasizing that positivity, and then they're going to want positive attention from you. What that means in practice is, rather than just saying, oh, Bob, you're talking, and I don't know, Derek, you're shouting out again, try and emphasize some of the positive behaviors, like, oh, look at Alex over there who's sat beautifully, and oh my goodness, have you seen Doreen over there? She's tidying up beautifully. As soon as you start throwing out those positive compliments and the praise, the other children want to earn it. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit further about different ways you can praise and reward the children as well. But it is super important. I mean, even as adults, if we're told you're not good enough, or I don't like this, or I don't like what you're doing, immediately it gets your back up. If you're told, wow, I really, really like that, or I think that's fantastic, you're much more likely to do what you've been asked to do. And a good friend of mine, who, in fact, I've got the book here, who is on Twitter, who wrote this book, The Action Hero Teacher, and his Twitter handle is Action Hero Teach. He refers to praise as a crap sandwich. And what he means by that is you say one positive thing to start with. So, I really like your enthusiasm and the way that you've tried during this lesson. Then the second part is the kind of the negative, the crap part, as you were. So I think you could improve on this part, and then you end with a positive. But I think you've improved massively from da 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 da. And that helps to sort of put a positive spin on praise and things like that, and feedback. Now, behaviour policy is something that I didn't know anything about. I'll hold my hands up, I knew nothing about this when I started my NQT. I just kind of assumed that when I was in the classroom, it was sort of my domain and I would do what I felt was best. I would say every school has a behaviour policy, but I mean, I've never heard of one that doesn't, but I'll say most schools should have a behaviour policy, and it's really important that you read through it before you start, or during inset, those sort of days. Speak to an SLT member, say, have you got a copy of the behaviour policy so I can read it, please? Often it will state how to sort of deal with behaviour, or what we do in the school to reward the children, etc. If it doesn't, then it kind of means it's a bit more free reign for you. You can do what's best for you. When you're in your classroom, it is mostly your choice how you deal with behaviour, but there are certain things that are always set out in behaviour policies, so definitely check it out. It's particularly helpful when dealing with negative behaviours. So it might say, if child A does X, you give them a warning. If they do something else, their name goes on the board with a tick or something like that. If they do something else, they go to a phase lead. If they do something else, it's a head, deputy head, etc. So it's important to sort of get to grips with that early on, and be sort of honest with the children. This is what will happen if you don't listen, basically. So why do some children misbehave in lessons? Well, there's 3 main reasons that I can think of, really. Lack of challenge, which could mean that your differentiation is not quite there. And don't panic. That's not me saying every single lesson's got to be perfect. You can never make a mistake. we all make mistakes, and we all have lessons where you plan it out, you spend hours planning, and you deliver the lesson, you think, that was absolutely dreadful, they didn't get it. So don't panic if that happens to you. But what I'm saying is, try to have challenges for all the children. It can't be too easy, but it shouldn't be too difficult either, okay? So your high ability children should not be doing the exact same thing as your lower attainers. If you do that, I mean, it's okay in some lessons, like if you were doing a class project, different, but generally speaking, you need to differentiate towards the ability of the children. If you don't, they're going to get bored, or they're going to get frustrated because they're not going to be able to do the work. Engagement is another big one. If you have an engaging lesson, if you have an engaging learning environment and also an engaging persona, so if you're you have a good relationship with your class, they're going to listen. If you don't have those things, you're going to struggle. So try to make your lessons fun and interesting, and if they're not being fun and interesting, change them. There's no harm at all in adapting a lesson during the lesson if that's what you feel is best for the class. Do not start a lesson, see it's completely tanking, and just continue with it. If it's not working, you need to adapt it there and then, or you're going to have problems. The other major issue is no consistency or clear rules and structure. Something I do with every class, and this is from early years, which I'm teaching now, all the way up to year 6, which I've taught every year group in school. One of the first things I do is I sit down and we make a class contract or class rules. So I'll put it out to the children. What do you think is a fair rule to have in the classroom? And they'll come up with ideas like, no stealing, no punching, no this, no that. You'll probably end up with 30, 40 rules. You don't want that many. That's too much. Depending on the age of your children, you want to sort of whittle it down to between 5 and 10, I would say. No more than 10, because it just gets too complicated. That's an important one as well. Now, this is a kind of little known thing, and it's something that I had to work on a lot in my NQT year. When I used to deliver my inputs, I would be stood at the front, talking away, and then I'd be looking and thinking, why are they not listening, or why are they getting bored? And the only thing I had to do, to start with anyway, to get that attention back, was just move around the room slightly. That doesn't mean you sort of do laps around the room every time you're doing an input, but just move yourself slightly. If you're stood at the board 1 second, just walk as you're talking, and you will see the children looking around to listen to your voice. They'll move to where you are in the room. And it's such a simple way of doing things, but it's so effective. And it's little things like when you're doing your input, say you've got children coming up to do an example with you, so they're modeling how to do the task. Don't do it exactly where you've stood. Just move slightly to the right or slightly to the left, because then immediately the attention is shifting. All the children are going to turn around, look, what's going on? Attention is straight back on you. Pace is another important one. Do not waste lesson time, and that goes all the way from early years to secondary and higher education. We have a very short period of time that we have to fit an awful lot in. If you waste your lesson time, you're not going to get the results that you want. So there's little silly things that you can do, and you will notice these as you sort of go on. If you've got worksheets, hand them out beforehand, or if you can't do that, hand them out while you've got a video on or something like that, if you've got a song or a presentation. If you can't do that, ask a TA or another adult in the classroom if you've got one. And if you can't do that, get the children to collect them as they go. I tend to put things out at the end of a lesson, but when I was in year 4 in particular, I used to put everything out for the day in stations, and the children, I just trained them to go and help themselves to the stuff, so they knew in this area is the math stuff, this area is the English stuff, this area is science, and they'd just go over, get the stuff as they were going to their tables, and it kind of stopped all that wasted transition time. You can train children to do pretty much anything like that. With your voice, this again is something I had to learn very quickly. It can be your most powerful tool, but it can also be your biggest enemy. If you are speaking in a monotone voice, or you're at the same pitch the whole time, the same volume, you're not going to have a good time. This is something that I learned very quickly. If you raise your voice, and you do it all the time, it's not going to have the same effect that you want. So most of the time I'll talk in a normal voice. If I'm getting upset with something or I'm not happy with the behaviour in the classroom, I won't immediately raise my voice. Sometimes I'll drop my voice down and I'll start whispering to the children, because if you start whispering, the children immediately sort of listen in, like, what's he saying? I can't really hear him, so I've got to listen. The more you raise your voice, the less effective it can be, really. There is going to be times you need to do that, so don't waste those times, if that makes sense. Be honest with everybody, all stakeholders involved in behaviour. So if you've got an issue with a child's behaviour, speak to the SLT first and then speak to the parent, because you're going to save yourself some massive hassle in the long run. I had to do this an awful lot in my NQT year, particularly when we were putting children on behaviour plans. But because I'd already spoken to them the initial time, when in a month's time we started talking about, okay, we need to escalate this and put a behaviour plan in place, or we need to look at different strategies, the parents weren't shocked. They knew this was coming. If you don't tell them to start with, or you don't tell the SLT, and all of a sudden you say, this child is, unmanageable, they're ruining my lessons, they're going to say, well, why didn't you say something before? And then you'll tell the parents, and they'll be like, we didn't know that. That wasn't the case before. So make sure you're honest. I'm aware of time, so I'm going to have to blitz through a little bit, but mini plenaries are very important. If you are in the middle of a lesson, you see that the behaviour is slipping slightly, or the understanding might be slipping, just stop the lesson for a second and just bring everybody back. You don't have to move them, they can still be at the tables, but just share a good piece of work, or say, okay, so can somebody tell me what they've learned so far this lesson? Just having that mini break for a second really helps focus the children. Now, in my classroom, I use a chart called the sunshine chart. So basically what happens, all children start on the rainbow in the morning. So I have a picture of a rainbow. And then underneath the rainbow, there is a rain cloud and then a storm cloud right at the bottom. Above the rainbow, there is the sunshine, and then there is the stars. So basically, everyone starts on a rainbow. If I see you doing something positive, I'll say, can you move yourself up onto the sunshine, or move yourself up one? If they move onto the sunshine, it's a very visual thing. It's a picture of them stuck on with blue tack. Really simple, but so effective. I've used it all across the board, and it's always been effective. And when they get to the top level, that's where they get a prize. So it could be a star on their star chart, a sticker, a point, however you're going to do your reward system. If they move down because they've had negative behaviours, the rain cloud is a warning, the storm cloud is 5 minutes of playtime. Any further than that, and they have to be sent somewhere else. But to be honest, it very rarely gets to that. The children don't enjoy seeing their face being moved down in front of their peers. But it's also important to note that they can move off that. They can go back up if they're showing positive behaviours. So it's important that the children know there is chance to redeem that behaviour. And I've put some examples here. So people that have used the traffic light system, people that have used pegs to say whether it's a good day, whether they're ready to learn, whether they think about it. And I quite like this one with the awesome and all the words. Class Dojo, I'm not going to have a chance to show you it, but I've took 2 screenshots to show you. This can be extremely effective. This can be primary or secondary. Anybody can use this. You can create your own class, create your own, it's free by the way as well. Create your own class, create your own groupings, and you can give feedback to the students. You can share this with parents as well at home, which can be a really powerful tool. It's just awesome. But if you want any more on that, just DM me on Twitter or whatever. I have put some stuff on here as well. Now with class rewards, like I said, if you're giving out stars, stickers, points, etc., you can use marble jars. We've used that before, and we have a class reward if we get to a certain amount. When we fill our jar, we have an ice cream day, or we have a film afternoon or something like that. So we'll have half an hour of film on Friday afternoon, or you can have an ice cream for lunch, or you can come in your pajamas one day. Now it's important when you're doing things like this, just make sure you clear them with SLT first, because I have seen a few times where teachers working with me have said, oh, we're having a pajama day today or whatever, and then everyone rocks up in pajamas and the SLT are like, well, why are they not in school uniform? So just clear it with your SLT first, but if you can explain it's for positive behaviour, then it will have a really powerful effect. You can have a rewards box. I just have some little prizes and stuff in there that they can earn. Star charts, house points, and
how is it?
Right, star charts, pretty self-explanatory, but I also use a thing called Star of the Day. Now, I have a star of the day and a star of the week. So I pick a star of the day. This is displayed on the window in my classroom. And the parents can see this. So it's really, really powerful. They can see, oh, that child's been really behaving this today or this week. Teddy books is something else I use, and I have used this all the way up to year 6, which is surprising because I thought sort of Key Stage 2 onwards, they would not want to do this. Now, I don't think this would work for secondary school, although I don't know, you could always ask them. But it has worked with me all the way up to year 6. Basically, we have a teddy bear, we have a book, they take it home on the weekend, we pick the child that's behaved the best or shown the best attitudes, etc., or lots of enthusiasm. They take the teddy home, they have Teddy for the whole weekend, they take some photos, they put it in the books, and they write about it. It's a really good way of encouraging writing too. Right, finally, last thing. Sorry for talking so long. I could talk about this literally all day. Main things to take from my talk. Be clear and consistent. So the children should always know what happens if they misbehave. So it's not up and down. So if they do one thing one day, they're talking, say, on the carpet, you don't just ignore it and then the next day you shout at them for it. You have to be consistent with everybody, okay? Don't talk over the children. If they are talking while you're teaching, just wait. And if you waste lesson time doing that, trust me, you're going to save yourself time in the long run. I fell into that pitfall in NQT massively. I used to just carry on teaching. The children are getting nothing from it. You'll get stressed and you're wasting time. So just wait. And if you wait, you can even make a note of the person who's talking on the board or something similar to that. And you can add a time limit. So what I used to do when it got particularly bad, I would write a time. So I'd put 1 minute on the board. And then pretty much as soon as you put 1 minute on the board, the children know that's 1 minute of playtime gone. We better shut up. If it's one person doing it in particular, then don't punish the whole class. Just have a word with that child separately. Move around the room and use your voice. Try to maintain a good pace in your lessons. Try to deliver engaging lessons and use praise. Now, I hope that's given you a sort of insight into some tips and things to use for behaviour. Sorry, it's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I don't want to talk all day because we have got other speakers that need to talk. If you have any questions about this, I think I'll have a chance to answer some now, if maybe one or two if we have time. If not, just DM me on Twitter. I'm nearly always on Twitter. I'm happy to answer anything. I'm happy to give more tips. I'm happy to explain things further if you feel like you need some more explanation. But thank you for listening, and I'm going to pass back over to Mr. P now, hopefully. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Craig. That was amazing. And I think from a secondary perspective, a lot of it was useful as well. So I think everyone can kind of gain from what you spoke about. So thank you very much for that. The winner of the freebies, which is another packet of pocket cards from Will Thomas called Coach Yourself to Better Relationships with Staff, Parents, Leaders, and also children, and also a head of department's pocket book, okay, is going to Mr. Jackway. So well done, Mr. Jackway, and I will contact you on Twitter and I will get them posted in the post for you. Amazing. Right, let's move on because we are a little slightly behind time. We're going to go over to Simon. Simon is going to be speaking to us about SEND. Again, something that we all know, we are all teachers of SEND. So I'm going to make him the host and then he will present. There you go, Simon.
Thank you. Lovely. So hopefully you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, morning. I'm Simon. I have been teaching in SEND since my NQT year. I had the pleasure of joining an academy trust, and I've been there ever since. And I've worked with a variety of different needs, working from children below expectation, children who have achieved GCSE grades 8 and 9 at our school. So we work with quite a broad range and a spectrum at our setting. So just a little bit about me. I got my degree mainly as primary education, and I graduated 6 years ago. And I started at the school that I'm still at as an NQT. I've worked across the board, working with children who are working at EYFS Key Stage 1 levels, and more recently I've been working with pupils for their GCSEs, particularly in maths and history. In 2018, I joined the leadership team with my main area of responsibility as pupil premium interventions and LAC, and also supporting the team with coaching. And then from October this year, I will be doing my National Award Senko qualification to support our current Senko, because as you can imagine, trying to do nearly 250, 300 reviews a year is going to be quite challenging for her. So we're going to share that across. So the main document that everyone will use is the SEND Code of Practice. Now, I just wanted to make it very clear that even though I am from a specialist setting, every school will have someone with SEND or who has been identified on the SEND register. This is where provision has to be amended slightly, or it has to be very different in comparison to their peers. And when we describe someone as having a learning difficulty, that means that they either have a significantly greater difficulty than others who are the same age, or whether they cannot access any of the facilities at that school. More and more schools now, there is pressure to accept SEND pupils, regardless of their disability, because provision needs to be put in place to support them. So, therefore, almost 15% of the population will have SEND. Only 3% of that will have an education, health and care plan, and the remaining 12% would be on a SEND support register, whether that's in school, whether that's down as having SEND support, whether that's having an action plan, whether that's having a personal support plan, or whether it needs to go to the extent of getting the local authority involved and formulating an education, health and care plan where there are more stakeholders in place. So in terms of what support I can provide, I'm going to give you some tips to help you in your classroom. So number one, allow that processing time. Processing time is so important for children, especially when there's lots of things to cover and lots of things that you need to remember in a short space of time. So to be aware of that diagnosis is so important, but it's actually understanding what it means for that child, how it's represented in that child. As for example, autism. Autism may be different from pupil A than what it is in pupil B. So we really need to consider how it's going to impact upon them in the sessions. Never overestimate the importance of using a visual. That includes using your visual timetable, whether you have instructions on that you show. I have PEC symbols on my lanyard. It's downstairs, so I can't show you it at the minute, but it has things like to sit, to be quiet, to eat, to go to the toilet, things like that, which they might not want to talk to you about, but actually that visual aid is there and it supports them with fulfilling that need. Using short, clear language is best. People might think it's being rude, but actually for their processing time, if you're going to say, for an example, can you please sit down in that chair? I would just say sit, which sounds like I'm talking to a dog and it might sound quite rude, but actually you're getting the point across and they're understanding what you want them to do. And to be innovative and flexible are two essential things. I know speakers have said that don't be afraid in the middle of your session to change it or to adapt, because it might be that sometimes they are getting it and other times they're not, but then that's every child in that classroom, regardless if they've got SEND or not. There is no shame in asking for support, whatever stage of career you're in. You may not always find a solution, so there's no shame in asking for help. There may not be a solution at that time, but it's always good to have all the information there that you have so you can put that relative good support in place. So use your mentor, use your department if you're in secondary, use any of the key stage staff, use your SENCO, use SLT, use anyone in that school, because everyone's voice is so important, particularly the pupils' communication system is their voice. There will be majority pupils will be verbal and will tell you as it is, but there will be some pupils who may find communicating difficult, and that's an area that's been identified on their plan. We would use the phrase pre-verbal. We never say non-verbal because that's implying that they can never communicate or never talk, when actually pre-verbal means they can use their body language, they can use their facial gestures, they can use certain tics and certain things that you know through that relationship with that child that you understand where they're communicating to you. Whether it's just a choice between two things they want for dinner, if they want a yogurt or if they want an apple, if they're looking at the yogurt, that means they want that. and be honest with people at home. Share the successes. They would love to hear that, because 9 times out of 10, previous staff who have had them talk to them always about any problems or any concerns or any challenges that they've had, when actually they want to hear what they've done, whether that if it's something small like they've sat down and they've written their name, or whether it's something like if they're an able child, whether it's something to do with they've written a really good piece of writing or they've really helped someone during a transition. Building positive relationships is so important, and every single one of us would say that. Something that we looked at recently was pupils know when you like them. So there may be some times where a pupil, as Craig said, may be driving you absolutely mental. And if they see that you know that, then they'll continue to push your buttons, and they will continue until you're at that stage of breaking point. When actually, if you know your pupils, you know their likes and their dislikes, you've read their plan, you know you've had the handover with teachers, you're just continuing that consistency. And it's really important to ensure that you are on their level. I've taught many children who love sport. I hate sport with a passion, but I would talk to them about sport and incorporate it into our dialect and into conversations that we have. If you have any pupils with one-to-ones or two-to-ones or any individualised staff, they still need your interaction as well. Don't ignore them as a teacher. Talk to them, not about them. Particularly with children with SEND, they are really good at noticing if you and your TA or you and your colleague are having a discussion in the corner. You might not be talking about them, but if you keep looking over in their direction, they are going to think you're going to be having a conversation about them, and then the relationship's just going to go downhill. So you need to consider communicating with all of your children, regardless if they've got a one-to-one or a personalised TA or a care assistant with them. Your idea of the right way may not be the same as the child's. You might model something a certain way, and actually the child does it differently. So for example, when I taught a SEMH group last year, we looked at addition. I taught a standard exchange with a column method. One girl absolutely couldn't stand that idea, but she had her own idea. Now, do I want her to concentrate on that idea? Yes, because if that's her way of working, that's her way of working. And that's it. It's a mastery method. She's using different methods than what I'm using, and she's getting the same result and the same product as everyone else. It's just the process is going to be different. And spend that time building trust with your children every single day, because then they're going to give you all of the love and the support that all the children want to give you in that classroom. With behaviour, don't take it personally. There will be children, SEND or not, that do present challenging behaviours, and practitioners I have in the past go home absolutely frustrated with myself because I think it's all about me, but it isn't. It may be because they're frustrated with something. It may be because the work was too difficult. So don't confuse the behaviour with the child. Don't label that child as being naughty or challenging when actually it's the behaviour we are tackling. It is an individual thing that belongs. Knowing the root of that behaviour is more important than the trigger. What is causing this? What is the underlying issue of this? How could we avoid that? These are the sorts of coaching questions that you would think about, and those reflection opportunities that you will have in your teaching career that will really support you in your behaviour management and building those relationships with your pupils. Something which people might disagree with but really works for us, as particularly with SEND, never ask for an apology immediately after an incident. If they're in crisis and they're really upset with something and you're at their level and you're saying, you need to say sorry, you need to do this, you did this and you made me sad, they're still sad. They're not going to understand the impact that they've had on you. They need to come out of that. Some pupils may cry for ages, and that is fine for them. They're in that crisis. They've understood that actually they are upset. They need to have that time in order to regulate their emotions and to be calm and to become ready to learn. Because if they've got that, they're not ready. Do not give them a book to do all this writing if they're upset, because they're not in that stage ready to learn. Okay, when all is calm, then have that discussion. Don't appear to be cross, because obviously that relationship is so important, and they won't give you the responses. They'll become really snappy with you. Be really calm, explain what happened, and be really clear with what you've done. Don't lie to them, be honest with them. Okay, and if you try a new strategy, give it at least 2 to 3 weeks before you see impact. So with a boy that I had last year, behaviour spiked a lot, so he got moved to me in the November, and we went to a strategy which involved working for 15 minutes, working on the iPad for 15 minutes, and we kept going throughout the day. If behaviour was challenging, we would clearly explain to him, this is not what we expect. We take the iPad from him and we wait for him. Even if it takes an hour, 2 hours, 5 minutes, you wait for him. He's not impacting on everyone else, we're ignoring him, and then you go, right, we're going to start the 50 minutes of work again, then you go back to his reward. Okay? And we kept doing that. And it was shared with all of the team that we worked with, because at the time, I had quite a bit of leadership time supporting the team. So all the team that went in would follow the same strategy, and it would be consistent throughout. And then after the 3 weeks or the month, we would go, has it had impact? If it has, then we keep going. If it hasn't, well, why not? Let's have that discussion, and we keep going. And the fifth thing, which I would say is really important, is that every child can be independent, regardless of their ability, even if they are children who are in wheelchairs or who are pre-verbal, can do things for themselves. We are educating pupils. I understand there is a national curriculum, and we do follow, the setting I'm at, we do follow the national curriculum. We just amend it to the ages of our children. But we're also teaching them the skills that they need to leave school. That's a really big part of our curriculum intent. We are preparing them for when they leave school, what can they do for themselves? Not the end of term assessments, okay? We want to prepare them ready, because I say this to my class every year. I say, I'm not going to hold your hand and do it with you. We're going to do it together, then you are going to do it on your own. Because they need to understand when they are older, I'm not going to be there anymore to help them. So they've got to be able to think of people who can support them if they need anything, whether it's their parents or carers, or if it's a friend, or if it's a neighbour, or if it's a work colleague, to get them and bring them their own tiny bubble which they can use for that support. Perfect work holds no value to me whatsoever if the teaching assistant has done it for them. I would rather see them mark make and dictate what they want, rather than a piece of A4 writing, which I know is not their writing, which I know they've not transcribed, which I know they've not said at all. It is inaccurate assessment, and I know some people have done it in the past, because I need to get an accurate assessment of where this child is at. If this child can do a bit more, then actually I would give it back and go, let's try again. If they are of a lower ability or behind or below age-related expectation, it's all about your differentiation and being really clear with what you expect that child to do. And teaching them how to play is just as important as the curriculum and the life skills that they need. So we have a big curriculum in our school. So for example, we have been teaching RSE, so sex and relationship education, for 3 years now, and I absolutely love it. Some teachers find it really daunting, but therefore we get to teach them about who are these people, how do they help us, talking about washing yourself, talking about doing your shoelaces, talking about let's use our knife and fork. It is incorporated into every single part of our day. So when the moment our children walk into school, there'll be someone stood at the door and say good morning. If that child does not respond in that way, we will follow them until they give us a response to say either good morning, or they look at us and smile, or they communicate in their way, because it is manners. And we teach them that manners right from when they start from us from 3 years old, whether it's just look at them and smile, or whether they just lift their hand slightly, to when they come into year 10, year 11 for exams and they don't really want to talk to us and they're really grumpy because they've not slept till 4 in the morning. We will still expect that same from when they come in the morning to when they leave to us at the end of the day, and we say goodbye on their taxi. We go, good evening, have a lovely evening, and they should say it back. So we do that right from the beginning, and what happens in school stays in school. So another thing I would say really quickly with behaviour is, if you've had a really challenging lesson in English, don't continue it in maths. Maths is a completely different session. You go, right, we're going to ignore what's happened, we're going to start again, and that is it. And we start each lesson as a fresh. And that really helps them, because they understand it is finished, we have done, now we move on. Okay. Just a few things for guidance. I've put a link on there that just highlights from the Send Gateway, which just highlights really good and outstanding practice in Send. It is quite a long document, but if you are interested in the future to obviously be involved with Send, go into a Send school or to become a Senko, they are really good. It looks at what we call the graduated approach, and it looks at that whole assess, plan, do, review, and looks at techniques which you can use, because obviously the first thing to support a child with Send is high quality teaching. If that high quality teaching is not there, then that's when the support will come into place. If the high quality teaching is there, then we need to consider what else can we do to support that child and their needs. Look at your school or local authority Send offer and policy. It is a legal requirement to be on their website. So if it is not on there, then that's where you would have that discussion with your NQT mentor or whoever in school to go, actually, it's not on there. What are you offering as a school? Because if a parent or carer comes to you as the class teacher as first point of call and goes, I've got some concerns, I think this is happening, then you've got to have the answers of what facilities do you have, what training have you had, what sorts of things could you offer, what does the curriculum offer, or who could you sign that post to support you and have that conversation with.
1 minute left.
Thank you. Familiarise yourself with an EHC plan. Many schools don't look at them, but actually it is really important to, because it is a really lovely document which shows you everything about that child's history, everything about their needs, and what strategies are there to support them. And obviously consider that use of networking with other professionals on Twitter or if on any other social media or within your area that you are working with. If you've got any questions, obviously come and let me know, and I'm more than happy to help as I can. And that's me done.
Thank you, Simon. That was great. The winner of that freebie goes to Miss A.E. Slicker, and you have won the ebook from the Well organisation, which is titled Leaving Work at Work. So again, another way to develop your well-being. Okay. Right. Next, we are going to go straight on to Tanya, and Tanya is going to give us some excellent ideas for starters and plenaries. Okay. So I'll make Tanya the host.
Oh, hi. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about me while my screen hopefully loads. I am Tanya. I'm an experienced history teacher. I'm a former NQT professional mentor and also a subject mentor. And I'm going to talk to you about 6 different ways that you can start or end your lesson. So I'm going to be asking you to contribute in the chat as well, because that's one of my techniques when I'm teaching via Teams or Zoom, is to get people to participate. So if there's something that I want you to do in the chat, I'll just let you know. And my handle is TanyaAlex@38. So I'm going to go over my top starters and plenaries for NQTs and trainee teachers, or anybody who just wants a little bit of a refresher. So I'm going to start off with some really simple starters and then work through some more difficult ones. All of these are very easy and take very little preparation. So to start off with, this is a very simple starter based on observation, and it's called a memory game. So it's a very simple way to start your lesson with an image, and you can do this with any class for any year. So you can pick any image that you want about any topic and you put it on the board, and I normally have this on the board at the beginning as the pupils are coming in, and you simply say to the students, look at this image for 30 seconds. You don't need a pen, you don't need anything other than your eyes, but when I take it away, you're going to write down as many observational points as you can remember. So we're going to give this a go. I'm going to put an image on the screen, but not for 30 seconds, just for a couple of seconds, and I would like you to have a go in the chat when I've taken it away, as remembering what you can see. So here we go. So here is the image. So this is what I would say to pupils: have a look at this image, start at the top, work your way down, look left, look right, don't write anything down, just have a good look at it, and when I take it away, I want you to write down what you can remember. So I'm going to take it away now. And in the chat, what I want you to do is I want you to have a go at writing down what you can remember in the next 10 seconds. Okay, so I'll talk about way number 2, that you can use images in a memory game. So have a go at that. So the second thing that I do with images that are memory games is a very simple adding on. You've got 5 questions about this image. It's exactly the same. You can use any image that you want, but you just change it ever so slightly to make it a little bit more difficult. So you're going to say this time, I'm going to show you an image. You're going to look at it for 30 seconds. And when I take it away, you're going to be asked 5 questions about this image. So I'm going to show you the image again. Okay, so there is the image, and then I'm going to ask you 5 questions about it. So here are the 5 questions. So my questions, as you can see, is a little bit more challenging this time, are more specific. So how many folders did you see in that image? What places on the globe are showing? What piece of fruit was in the picture? What mathematical equipment, and what colours are the folders? So that's making it slightly more difficult than just writing down what you can remember. So hopefully you might have got all 5. So you should have had that there was 2 folders. The globe was showing Africa, India, Asia, and the ocean. There was an apple as a piece of fruit, there was a set square and a ruler, and the folders were orange or purple. So they're very simple. You don't need a lot of preparation for those. So my third observation game is say what you see. So again, I want you to have a go whether you can figure out these 3 words. So this is a game like catchphrase. So you can do this in various ways. You can use emojis, you can use dual coding images from the Noun project, or you can just get bits of clip art or photographs like I have done here. So have a look and see if you can figure out what you reckon the catchphrase could be in relation to obviously this training. It should be quite easy, but see whether you've got it. So they're my 3 top tips for observation games using an image. So a memory game, asking questions about the image, and then say what you see. So the second type of starter that I use regularly is word games. Now this was the most popular starter at the school in Stockport that I just worked at. So I have used this before without SpongeBob, but the kids called it the SpongeBob game. So there's a picture of SpongeBob on the board, and when they saw SpongeBob was on the board, they knew that they were going to be playing this game. So if you got the answer to say what you see, which was newly qualified teacher, I would have that on the board, and I'd say you've got 2 minutes to try and come up with some new words using the letters from newly qualified teacher, but you can only use those letters, you can't just add in any extra. And then they write them down in the back of the book, and then you say, right, everyone give me a word that you have named, and I would give out an award, whatever prize that you want, a little sweet or an achievement point for the longest word, the person who's got the most words, and whoever comes up with the most unique. So you can have a little go if you want of making a word, a new word out of a newly qualified teacher as a little way of doing that. So building on what I've just said about the SpongeBob game, you can have a go at Scrabble tiles. So this is a variation of SpongeBob, but without a central key phrase. So you could get the Scrabble tiles on the board, or you could give them this actual Scrabble board, and you ask them to make words in relation to the topic that they're studied. So this is combining literacy and numeracy as well. So you can have a go if you want at making a word related to teaching. I also did this with my own son when we were doing spellings. So we got the actual physical Scrabble tiles out on the table, and he had to arrange them when he was looking at certain endings with his spelling. So he was in year 3, and he quite enjoyed actually making words with the tiles. So that could be something you could obviously take into primary school. So my third word game, which is one of my favourites, is called Vowel List. So you basically put a selection of keywords for the lesson or from the unit on the board, and you just take out the vowels, and then the pupils have to figure out what the words are. So I've got 5 words down the side there relating to me, I suppose, or things that are relating to this session, to see whether you can figure out what those 5 words could be if you put the vowels back in. And number 1 is what I teach, so I'll give you a clue there. So we're going to move on to some more challenging starters. So all of those starters that I said were very simple and easy things that don't take a lot of preparation. This one takes a bit more preparation and is more challenging. And I'm sure if you have been on Twitter for a while, or obviously with an NQT, you might not have heard of this. They're called retrieval grids. Okay, so this is a challenge grid, and I've got I've got a PE example here, but there is loads of them already templated that you can have a look at on the internet. So this is basically a grid, and it can be a 4x4 grid like this one, or it can be a 4x3 grid, and you basically color code it into red, yellow and green. So red questions are easy and they're worth 1 point, yellow questions are medium and they're worth 2 points, and green questions are hard and they're worth 3 points. So you generally have 3 of each, and as you can see, you generally mix it up, so it's in a checkerboard fashion. The other way that you can do this, because it's called a retrieval exercise, is you can do it in what did we learn last lesson, and that could be the red questions, what did we learn last week, the yellow questions, what did we learn last month, and they could be the green questions. So you can do it slightly different, and you can do this at the start or at the end of the lesson, and then they just add up the points and you see who's got the most amount of points. So I haven't come up with this idea. I think it was Kate Jones on Twitter that came up with it, but it has been around for a couple of years and it does work really well, but this would take you longer to prepare. So this is another really popular starter that I used this year, especially for GCSE. So it's another retrieval game called Articulate. So this is a grid with keywords, and students have to describe the word or write a definition for each word. So this is a history version, and as you can see for this one, it has got the different units that they study for GCSE. Or obviously not at the minute, you might want to cut out the cards for paired articulate and have them in an envelope, and each person takes it in turns. I use this on Teams as a way to recap. So when I was teaching year 10 on Teams, I would have the grid of words and one person would describe it in the chat and another person would have to guess what the word is, and then whoever got it fastest would pick a new word. So if you've tried Articulate, you can type in the chat that I've given it a go. But again, this takes more preparation than some of the other starters that I explained earlier. So this is a favourite. Everyone should have heard of bingo. So my last retrieval game is bingo. So this is pretty straightforward to do. You can do this off the cuff, or you can do it with a bit of preparation. And everyone can do it, whatever topic you are teaching, including maths. So you can draw a 3x3 grid. You can do 6 words or you can do 9 words. So 9 is quite a lot. You don't want to be there all day. And you basically give them a clue, and the students cross off the words, or you could do equations or sums, whatever you want, or spellings when they have them. So I normally say, let's go for a line first, and then let's go for a full house. So this is just an example of a bingo about American items, but I'm sure lots of you will have used bingo or played bingo. But if you haven't, it is a really popular way to reinforce keywords, but also check that they have learned something at the same time. So I've got a couple left, and we're just going to look at some logic games, because there is different ways to assess people's knowledge. And one of the ways that I like to do this, which most of the time there isn't a right answer, but for this one there definitely is. So you need to have a series of 3 or 4 words or images, and you ask students to decide which one is the odd one out and why it is odd. Now you can either do this verbally, or you can write it in the back of the book, or you can give them a post-it note and they come to the board and they put the post-it note on the image that they think is odd. So it shouldn't be difficult to decide out of those figures A, B, C, D, which one is the odd one out, because it should be D, because it's not at a, I suppose, a right angle. I'm not a mathematician, but I would have gone for D, and it's a good idea to label them or number them. So odd one out is really simple, and sometimes it gets some really good answers as well. So these ones are getting a little bit more difficult. So I've got 2 left. I could talk for a long time on how you do inferences, but as most of you don't teach history, I'll just pick one. So if you are studying an image, for example, so you're building on perhaps the observation round that you've done at the beginning, you can place an image in the middle of a Word or Google document, and then you have 3 layers of inference on the outside. So inference squares is a classic. There's variations of how you do this. So you start off, and I know Andy's going to be doing a bit of questioning in a second. You start off with an easy question. So it could be describe what you can see in the poster, like this one is showing the Battle of Britain pilots. The second question needs to be a little bit more challenging, so the level needs to go up, and it says, what emotions is this poster trying to provoke? And then finally, a harder question, like why was the poster made? So if you have used an inference square before, or some kind of inferencing, there's different ways you can do it. You can do it in a grid, you can do it all sorts of different ways, but that's more difficult, more challenging than obviously some of the other starters. And to finish, okay, so this is my last idea. I like to use meters or continuing lines. So in history and other subjects, we normally have a question. So for example, the question could be, how beneficial has this CPD been? And the pupils need to decide whether they agree or, okay, I'll rephrase that. This CPD has been amazing. So if you agree that the CPD has been amazing, you would put your post-it note on 100%, or sorry about that. If you agree that the CPD has been amazing, you would put it on the line, I completely agree. If you disagree that the CPD has been amazing, you would go for strongly agree. So you can do it on a continuing line, or you can do it on a meter. And this is something in history that we use a lot, because there's a lot of questions that ask your opinion, and obviously you could do it for any topic. So if you've tried one of those before, you can type in the chat. So they are my top ideas for starters and plenaries.
That was amazing, Tanya. Thank you so much for that. Some starters and plenaries which I probably couldn't even get myself, so that was really, really difficult. But no, thanks. Some ideas that I'm definitely going to be taking into my own classroom. Right, the winner of that one of the next freebie is Mrs. Hadwin. So you are getting the Andrew Cowley book, which is the Teacher Wellbeing Toolkit. So I will DM you on Twitter, and I'll get a post out to you soon. So well done. Right, let's move over to the next, our penultimate slot from Andy Hassan, and Andy's going to be speaking to us about questioning, which is massively important in every classroom across the any key stage as well. So Andy, you're already the host, which is great. So I will shut up and off you go.
All right, cool. So I'm on then, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll just share my my bits. Let's have a look. Hopefully that worked. Is it up? Is it working? I don't know. Right. Okay. So my talk today is on questioning, and the reason I chose questioning is because I think it's one of the most important ways to not only differentiate in your classroom to make sure that you can check the learning, but also there's so many great speakers out there that have said that this is one of the most important tools of the teacher, and that most of the time spent testing students in class is actually done through questioning. So what I'm going to do today is just go over a couple of reasons why testing is important, questioning is important. I'm going to talk about some of the ways you can do that, and some of the things to look out for as well, because it is massively important. I think so anyway. Because I like to talk, it's probably my favorite measure anyway. So here we go. All right. So firstly, the basis for all questions, and if you've been on your PGCE or you've done your NQT, you would have definitely had this drummed into you back in university about Bloom's taxonomy and the addition, the Anderson's, the one that adapted it, the one I've got up here now, and how important this has become for two things really. Setting your objectives out for class so that you make sure that you have a mix of different conceptual skills that students have to master by the end of a period. And I remember on my PGC and both my mentors, they drilled it into me that you should try and do a 2-2-2. So try and have your first objective. I know some people do bronze, silver, gold, whatever you've chosen to do. Have maybe something where all students or all of the students or most of the students should be able to understand or to remember something by the end of the lesson, to be able to recall key information. But then you want students to move up Bloom's taxonomy to start using things like application of knowledge, to be able to compare and contrast and to distinguish between bits of information before going on to making a judgment, some sort of evaluative response at the end. And that usually forms the basis of what we use in history. I know that English departments and science departments use it, is using a why question to have a good inquiry question at every lesson that students should be able to attempt at the end, or even be able to discuss. I've put some examples on the side, and Bloom's is great because in the 50s when Bloom came up with this, he wanted people to start thinking about the types of skills they were using. If you just do question, answer, it's basic recall, comprehension, and you write down the bottom, low cognitive thinking, very good for recall and checking, but very low diagnostic for really into the conceptual nature of your subject and understanding the links that bring the bigger picture. The further up you go through Bloom, the more you're asking students to then actually show what they know and apply it to a different scenario, to try and maybe look, instead of saying what the characters did and where they went and how they did it, to start saying, well, what's the difference between the characters? What were their intentions? What were their motives? Why were they different? And then by the end, looking at creating a piece of work, like for example, now pretend you're one of the characters, write a diary entry. And so Bloom's is great for that, but also Bloom's is great for questioning. And this is why I mentioned it, is because Bloom's gives you the verbs to be able to elicit those type of skills from the students. So, just define something, tell me something. It's so simple recall, but you go up and you say, right now, I want you to defend this argument or come up with a counter argument or compare. And in doing so, you get higher cognitive thinking from your students. So I want to go through some of the techniques that I found really useful, because I'm very much a sort of, I tend to throw everything out of the box at the beginning of a lesson. I go, right, guys, what did we do last lesson? What did we learn about this? And the hands go up in the air, and it's all very exciting. And then all of a sudden, you've picked your top student, your second, your third, and the ones who don't really know much kept their hands down. And suddenly then your star students are dominating the section, and you can't really gauge whether the students have learned, all the students. And good questions should always try and engage all the students, even if it's directed at one person. You should always be engaging all students. And sometimes the best way to do that is to use this, hands-down questioning. It's so simple, and it's one of the things you learn on your PGCE. But really, the benefit, and I have to drum it into myself, no, I have to pick the students. I know it feels a bit harsh, but it gets every student thinking. And Rosenshine, I remember when we were doing our PGCE, some of you guys would have looked at Rosenshine. It was all about ask the question first, pose the question, get them all to have to think that it could be me, so I have to know the answer. If they're all thinking, they're all engaged. Even if you pick one student to answer, all students have learned from this activity because they have to think of the answer, they've recalled it, and they've corrected it when they got it wrong in their mind, or whether somebody got it right. I feel validated, I got it right. So asking the question first gets them all engaged. And there's also that idea of, are you going to use open and mixed questions? I think it was Dylan William, we all looked at the Inside the Black Box. I think everybody's looked at that for AFL. 80% of the questions we ask in the classroom are closed questions, then 20% are open. So what are we going to do? Are we going to use a mix of them? What kind of questions are we going to ask? So what happened? How did it happen? And then open it up and say, so why? Can you come up with a counter argument? What is the benefit of using those kind of questions? How deep do you want to get? Some of the things to definitely think about with this, and what a lot of the research now is, how long are we giving students to answer? How quickly? And you guys right now should be thinking about, well, how long do I actually wait? 3 seconds? The average wait time tends to be 3 seconds before you go, hang on, all right, we'll get someone to help you. And of course, students, they develop at different times. Some students have to receive the question, think, and then think of a way they're going to present their their answer. And 3 seconds isn't enough before you bounce. It can be quite demoralizing if you do that, and it will discourage. So good question. You need to make a decision. How long am I going to wait? Am I going to wait the full 10 seconds that's recommended by a lot of different researchers? That's something you need to think about. You'll know your students and how quick they are. Another thing as well is thinking about the type of questions. If you're using closed questions, they're brilliant for quick fire, rapid, so what happened? When did it happen? Why did you do it? Quick. If you're doing that, it's going to have lower diagnostic power because it can lead to some fluke answers. Students will chime up with an answer, or someone will whisper the answer to them and they shout it out and they get the answer right, but you need to be able to use a mix of open questions. So tell me a little bit more about that. Why would this have happened? What was its intentions? It gets the students to think a bit deeper about it. So you have to do that, but you have to realize using these type of questions will take time. So if you're going to use questioning, you need to allot a certain amount of time knowing that you'll use what you're using it for. If it's diagnostic and you are checking that they've understood and they can really relate to the last lesson, that's fine. If you're just checking something you've just watched in a video, how long are you going to spend on that? Chorus answers, I'm a bandit for this. I use chorus answers all the time. 3, 2, 1, answer. But of course, again, it's not recommended to use chorus answers because students will perhaps be quicker than others to respond, and you get that problem again. There is also the risk that by asking one student, you only answered 3 questions. Only 3 students have been engaged. So how can I involve the whole class? And so that's why I'm coming on to my next tip, which is about the think, pair, share. I know this is the classic, sort of have a think on your own, so 15 seconds, think on yourselves, then spend 15 seconds talking to a friend, and then I'm going to ask one of you guys to give me the answer. And that's brilliant, but that one again, if you're only asking 3 questions, you're only going to get 3 sets of 2 students involved. 6 students are involved in that. But it has had that discussion, and there's that great impact of being differentiated as well. This was my go-to in my lesson plans. I remember on my NQT and my PGCE was, it's good differentiation because a weaker student or a lower ability student will be able to chat about it with someone who's higher ability, and they will both work out the answer together. Well, it is very helpful, but again, if you want to extend that and make it group work, I've found some of the best question I've done has been to receive one answer from a table of maybe 4 or 5 students. And the benefit of that is it leads to much greater collaboration, especially if you've got an open question, like, for example, we do in history, what problems did Elizabeth I have when she took over the throne? Or what were the reasons why World War I started? Well, there's loads of answers for that. So you can ask students, now all of you collaborate, come up with ideas, 3, 4, 5 answers, and I want you to give me one of them. And the best thing about doing that is that you get all of them involved thinking about it. They take a shared responsibility and not embarrassing themselves by giving weak answers. But also as well, you get a much higher response rate because instead of just having 2 students that both didn't know the answer, suddenly you've got a group that's putting loads of ideas in a pot. It's great recall. It's great differentiation as well. And there's also an added niche. If you elect a spokesperson, one person who can give you the response, that person can be tactically done, not just for discipline. If you've got a sort of unengaged student who sits back, doesn't really get involved in the group chats, suddenly he's interested, he's engaged, because he knows you're coming to him. So you can engage him. You can also use it to motivate lower ability students to get involved in the discussion, to have some sort of response as well. So electing a spokesperson is really good. And you do get multiple answers from lots of groups, increased response rate. So be careful with your questions. Definitely get groups involved. And pick people very strategically. And I just always worry about the dominance of one person. So always be careful about that one person in a group who does dominate. There is a dominating person in each group. But of course, you can alleviate that. You know your students, you'll get to know your students, and definitely have some fun with it. It can be very interesting, and you get some interesting results. Okay, next one. I got another tip here. This is one of my favorite ones, and I didn't like it on my PGCE. I have to say, I didn't even try it on my PGCE, even though it was recommended to me. And I regret it because actually I've used it more now than I ever have. The pause, pounce and bounce is brilliant. It's sometimes called basketball question as well, because you can pose your question, and again, you wait, you pause, give them that 10 seconds. Everyone in the room is now thinking of the answer. Then you can pounce, not don't do it aggressively, but you can jump to someone and say, right, what do you think? What's the answer? But the benefit is then you bounce it to someone else, and you can do that to different degrees. You can go to a lower ability student first and say, right, what do you think of this? What's the basic answer? Give me the entry level answer. Great, I've got a win from him. Brilliant, he's got a win, he's happy. Then I bounce it to another lower ability student, and I could say, well, can we add anything onto that? Is there anything we can add onto that? Is there anything, any extra information? You can bounce it to a higher ability student and say, right, can you think of a counter argument to that? Do you agree with that response? Okay, is there anything else that we can add? So you jump around the room with this. The same question has bounced around. Suddenly, you've got people giving counter arguments. You've involved greater numbers of students. You've encouraged maybe a debate. Okay, so there's two different sides to the story. Right, everyone we want on one side, everyone who thinks this, and one side think that. Why did you go over this side? Suddenly you've got a discussion going. So pouncing and bouncing can be really good for adding on to answers, and it's really good if there's a multiple complexity to a response. I find in history, example, World War I is a great topic when you say, so tell me about what started World War I. Okay, is there anything else maybe that's more important than that? Bounce it, bounce it, bounce it. Come back to you. Do you agree with what they've said? Have you changed your view? So it's brilliant. That's a really great one as well. Again, just be careful how you pounce, because you don't literally pounce on someone. You don't want to shock and scare someone. So you've got to know your students. Get to know your students this way and try and ask the right people. And again, you can be very choosy with your differentiation as well, how you do it. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to bounce on myself. Last one, I wanted to talk about this one, Socratic questioning. Socrates was a really irritating philosopher, very fun person to read about. But again, it's a great way, Socratic question is a great way to engage more. When you ask quick fire questions, you tend to get short responses, you know, just, all right, what was this, when was that, when was this, quick. And in order to delve deeper, sometimes you can say, okay, now tell me why. Okay, so for example, I've put here, why did World War I begin? Someone will say, oh, everyone hated each other. Fantastic, great response. Okay, can you defend that? Why did they hate each other? Oh, well, Germany and France hated each other because they didn't like each other. Why? Oh, because they had a war ages ago. Great, okay, good. So you go further and further into it, okay, and you really, and the benefit of that is that in asking students why, not only is it fun for me to irritate them, but also it's really, it really gets them to defend their position. I said this answer, now I can defend it and use evidence to back it up. Excellent historical skills, excellent debating skills, good for English. It just makes them justify their position. And you can also test to see if they really do know it or whether they just shouted out any old rubbish. So that's a good one. They do take a bit of planning though, because you've got to have that trail of answers that you can expect to have from students. And again, you can bounce if students don't understand it and get more. And some students don't like being poked, to be fair. Some people, why? Some people don't like that. So get to know your students, and as you do it, try out these different ones. My last slide is really just some practice, some general practice from the research. Again, give loads of time for answering. I know it takes time from your lesson, but it can be worth not giving an opt-out. If a student doesn't know, well, maybe I can rephrase the question or ask a sub-question that gets you to answer this question. So can you stagger questions or scaffold questions to help them to it? Is it, you've got to decide, is it worth the time invested? Is a minute and a half on a student to get him answering that question? Have I helped that student think, oh, I can do it? Or, is it not worth the lesson time? It's up to you. You have to decide, but sometimes it's best not to give them an opt-out. Offering say it again options are really good as well. Can you just rephrase that? Because sometimes they come up with some fragmented response. Well, say it again now. Now you've given me all this gibberish. Say it again in a nice, clear and cohesive way. That's a lot better. It just gives them a chance to improve on their responses. And always be encouraging. With questioning, you're not trying to catch people out. I know some people do, not guilty. But it is a really great way to facilitate their engagement and have some fun as well. Definitely avoid things like this. That's not right. Moving on. Okay. That's going to be demoralizing for students. Try and be positive. I'm a pointer, I have to say, but I've started to sort of go, here's the question. A bit more encouraging gestures. And please don't be so impatient. Like I learned this the hard way on my PhD. Come on, you should know this. You're year 10. No, that's only going to put them off because they're going to think you're rushing them and that you're not patient. So give them the time that they need. I put some links, which is going to go into the PowerPoint that we put onto the Google Drive. I've just put some links, and probably one of the best ones. I know this is Dylan Black and William is like the ultimate AFL go-to, but this document here is really useful to me when I was doing my PGC and my NQT. effective questioning, this guy called Get Gassed, he's put this like toolbox together, and there's a link here. It's free. You can just take the PDF away. Tons of ideas like thinking hats, hot seating, loads of different ideas that I haven't been able to mention today. So you can have that, and then you can click that link, and it's absolutely awesome. It's a really big, it's about 30 pages, tons of ideas. And if you want to, and if you have any questions or anything, please do follow me on Twitter. You can DM me, and I try and respond, and I'll come back to you with anything. Just that's me. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Andy. That was absolutely fantastic. Some excellent ways of developing your question. And I know for me, I've been in teaching 10 years now, and my questioning still isn't as strong as what it possibly could be. So I know I'll be taking some of those ideas, definitely. So well done, and thank you for that. Now we have 3 winners for this, for the penultimate freebie. You are winning a book from Crown Publishing, and you get to choose one of 2. So I will contact you through Twitter or your email for the winners, and you can choose which book you want. And those winners are EYFS Chantel, Haycock R, and Dr. Jahi Hussein. So well done to you 3 for your 3 prizes, and I'll contact you very shortly with them later on today. Right, finally, we have the amazing Eva-Joy, who is just past her NQT year. So it's going into September as an RQT, and is going to just give you some advice from basically you guys in a year's time. So I'm going to hand over to Eva and make her host, and then I will be quiet. There we go. Fab. That work, Eva? You muted, Eva. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect, yes.
Fabulous. All right, so like Alex said, my name's Eva. I've just finished my NQT year, the weirdest one ever. But I just wanted to give you my top 10 NQT hacks. Obviously, it's been a weird year for you guys, and it's probably going to start a little bit weird, but these are what got me through at NQT, apart from having obviously a great boss, Alex. But yeah, so oh no, it's not working. Oh, there you go. Okay, so you can tell we all work in the same school because Find Your Marigolds is there yet again. I was lucky enough to be surrounded by wonderful marigolds from my first day. But like Anna said, sometimes you are not put with marigolds, and you do need to get around and find them. We are in a massive school, so there is plenty of room to find them. But also be someone else's marigold. Don't always think that everyone has to give you all the positivity. Like, it always makes you feel better as a person, and it does keep you constantly pushing for yourself to be great as well if you're pushing someone else. So yeah, totally find your marigolds with this little happy stick person there. Number 2, just breathe. This is my life, literally. I struggled so hard in my training year with just remembering that it is only an hour. And sometimes you can think that the worst things are happening all over the classroom, and afterwards someone will be like, oh, that was a really good lesson, like everyone was really engaged. But in your head, it's all falling apart. So even if you are falling apart inside, remember, it's just an hour. Just keep smiling. All right. Number 3, we are only human. I taught food studies, this year. As Alex knows, I am absolutely rubbish at cooking, and I struggled so much with it. The amount of times I cried after a lesson, the amount of times I cried probably during a lesson. But you are only human, and when I started telling the kids, like, we'd talk about stuff, and some things I just wouldn't know, and they loved it. They thought, I think they thought it was a bit hilarious, but they really did respect the honesty of it. And they would happily then come next lesson with the answer to that question. Okay, so we are only human. We will not know everything. And, you know, every day is a school day. So, you know, we're still learning as well. Number 4, collaborate, a massive thing. Get out of your own classroom. You can get very stuck with what feels safe, and once you go and watch other teachers in their classrooms, it makes a massive difference to your progression as well. If you have a weakness, go and find a teacher who has that as a strength, who's well known for it around school, and go and watch how they put that in their lessons. So if you struggle, say, with behaviour management, go and find someone who's really well known for it. Watch their lessons, watch how they engage, watch how they tackle it. Even if it's going to if it's a particular class, go to the teachers that also have that class. Have a talk to them. What did they use? What skills? What tactics? And just collaborate with each other. Like, you're all there essentially for the same reason. Okay, you want to inspire. You want the best out of them, and that is how we do it. Number 5, be the positive. So always be the positive person in the classroom. Teenagers do need a boost. They can be so, like, their resilience can slack, especially as they start to get into GCSEs. So, you know, as long as you're the constant, then they'll feed off that vibes. And if you haven't, there is a TED Talk by Rita Pearson called Every Child Deserves a Champion. It got me through my training year watching that every morning on the bus. It's an amazing TED Talk, and it really does show what we are about and what we do, and how important what we do has an effect on them. Okay, so please, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely watch it. It's amazing. Number 6, use the protocols. Something that was my target through my whole NQT year. Follow the protocols. They are there to help you and support you. You have to trust them. You have to trust your school, and those things are in place for a reason. Okay, so always follow the protocols. I struggled with this from the first day I set foot in school, and as time's gone on, you do start to trust it, but you should just literally go in there thinking, okay, the school has got my back. I just need to get through this and use those things that have been put in place. Okay, so trust them. Number 7, the good and bad days. One good day will overwrite the 146 bad ones. Okay, I've had some of the worst, especially in my training year. I've gone home and said that I'm quitting, that teaching's not for me, and then I've gone in the next day, and you know, one child has just been really nice to me, and I'm just like, oh, this is the best job in the world, like, I love it. And it's true, like, if you don't feel like quitting at least 15 times in your NQT year or your training year, then you're probably doing it wrong, because it is the best job in the world, and it's amazing. And you are going to have your really bad days. You're going to have really, really bad days, but that one good day that you get, even if it's one in a week, like, it will just, it makes the bad days just look like nothing. Okay, so massive one to me, that always think about the positives. Listen with your eyes. If your class aren't engaged, change it up. It's a massive thing that, you know, everyone always thinks like, oh, the class is really quiet, they're obviously really engaged. They're not necessarily engaged. If you're looking around the room and everyone's a little bit like distracted, they might be quiet, but it doesn't mean they're actually enjoying it. Okay, so just change it up a little, catch them off guard a little bit, have fun with them, but yeah, show a bit of your personality in it, because they will, some kids and some classes will just sit silently and look like they're doing things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are. So always listen with your eyes. Number 9, work-life balance, one of my favourites. What needs to be done is the most important question, so prioritise. I have a thing where on a weekend, I normally, on a Saturday morning, I go to a coffee shop and I sit and do the work that I like. So I like marking personally, and like, I will happily go and sit in a coffee shop with all my books and happily just sit there and mark. It doesn't feel like work when I'm doing it that way. It's something that I enjoy, and it's somewhere that I can have a nice coffee and chill out, maybe grab some lunch, and it doesn't make me feel like it's really like I've got this task that I have to finish. Some people would hate that, but pick the things that you enjoy doing to take home. So don't don't do all the good things at school and then go home and then you've got all these horrible tasks to do on your weekend. Switch it over. So take the stuff that you actually enjoy and be like, oh, this actually, I'd actually really enjoy this. Take that home with you and do that one. It makes it feel better and it doesn't make you feel like it's work, and you'll probably do it a lot better. And number 10, be yourself. Use your personality in your lessons. You didn't get the job just based on paper. So you're awesome, so just be awesome. Kids love personality. They do not like someone who just stands there, or like, just be yourself. Like, you obviously got that based on your personality as well, so use it. Honestly, it'll be grand. But yeah, that's it really. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Eva. That was brilliant. Some amazing tips again. So a big thank you for that. The winner of the final freebie of the session, the freebie is a £50 meal receipt from ClassNet. So I will get in contact with this person, and all you need to do is you need to send the receipt for a meal that you go out with your family or your partner, whoever, and you will post the receipt to them, and then they will give you the money back. And that goes to Twitter handle Sam53027212. Okay, so a big massive well done for getting that. I just want to take this opportunity to say to all of you that are still here, thank you for staying with us an extra half an hour. I hope it's been worthwhile. I know it's been, in my opinion, it's been some amazing quality CPD that we all need. I also think it's really important to recognise and to say that we've all been in your position before. Every one of us that have spoken today, we've all felt those nerves, that level of anxiety, that feeling of walking in and not knowing what to do, and that feeling of being kind of out of our depth. But you are, and like Eva said, you didn't get the job just because what was on paper. You've got it because that school want you for a reason. They want your personality. Enjoy it. You will love it. It will go so fast. But again, please DM any one of us that have presented today, or just follow us on the Twitter account at studio_teachers, and we will definitely get back in touch with you. But it's been lovely having you here. We will be uploading everything to the Google Drive, to our YouTube channel, with more other documents that might be relevant. If you think there is something relevant that you want to share, please share it with us and we'll upload it as well. We're all about collaboration, networking, and basically our kind of main aim is to support every single one of us that enters the education sector. Have a fabulous first week as an NQT or an ITT. You will be knackered by Friday, so get the gin ready, or get the wine ready, or get the lager ready, or the water, and just enjoy it. Have a lovely time, have a lovely rest of the Sunday and a fabulous bank holiday, and it was lovely seeing you all. Thank you and take care.